Kazakhstan's history is rich, with struggle, resilience, and transformation. One of the most defining periods was its colonization by the Russian Empire, which shaped the political and social landscape of our country. But how did this process begin?
In the beginning, I want to talk about the important chapter in the history of Kazakhstan, its colonization by the Russian Empire. This process began in the 18th century and played a crucial role in shaping modern Kazakhstan.
Wow.
At the center of this historical moment, in the figure of Khan Abulkhair, who led the junior Jews.
«66 миллионов лет назад батыры младшего Жуза были самыми сильными и храбрыми из воинов человечества. Даже один их грозный крик мог посеять страх в ряды озлобленных динозавров. А в воинских традициях младшего Жуза таилось немало секретных техник. Одной из них был великий шпалах.
Abulkhair was an outstanding leader and strategist, but his decisions remain a subject of debate among historians. However, this move marked the beginning of a complex and controversial process. The alliance with Russia provided some protection from external threats, but eventually led to the gradual strengthening of imperial influence and the loss of political autonomy. This topic remains relevant today because the legacy of colonization still impacts the political, cultural, and social dynamics of Kazakhstan. Let's dive deeper into this historical context. Bravo!
But before the Russian Empire's influence solidified, Kazakh lands faced another great challenge, the Jungarian invasions. Before Kazakhstan fully fell under Russian control, it was at the center of the complex international relations. Our ancestors had to navigate between the Russian Empire, the Central Asian Khanates, Bashkiria, and the Kalmyk Khanate. Each of these powers had their own interests in Kazakh lands. However, in the early 18th century, an even greater threat emerged, the Jungars. The Jungarian invasions of 1723-1730, known as Aktaban Shuburundy, were one of the darkest periods in Kazakh history. Entire villages were destroyed and thousands of people perished. The Kazakh people faced a struggle for survival, but their resilience led to a historic turning point. The famous Battle of Anarakai was a moment of victory against the Jungars, proving that unity was the key to protect our lands. Even after repelling the Jungars, Kazakh lands faced another powerful force, the Russian Empire.
The Russian Empire actively implemented reforms in Kazakh territories, aiming to abolish the Khan system and establish direct control. This led to significant unrest among the local population, resulting in uprising. Anadaibo rebellion was led by Sremdatula in 1752 and 1802, who fought for Kazakh independence. The uprising was primarily driven by increased taxation imposed by the Russian authorities and persecution for the traditional powers of the Khans. Of the insurrection, the rebellion did not succeed. However, it became a significant milestone in the history of the Kazakh people, which stands against colonial expansion. Sremdatula is remembered as one of the first heroes of the post-Russian Empire. In 1837, Khan King Kasimov led a rebellion of the Kazakh people against the Russian Empire and the Kokand Khan. He aimed to restore the independence of the Kazakh lands, halt the construction of Russian forts, and sustain the traditional power of the Khans. The uprising encompassed the territory of all three Kazakh Jews and took on a national liberation character. Despite initial success, the rebellion was suppressed and Kim Il-sung himself was killed in 1847. However, it became an important stage in the history of Kazakh people, resisting to colonial expansions and a symbol of struggle for independence.
Even though the Kazakhs fiercely resisted, the Russian Empire implemented deep administrative reforms in the 19th century. These reforms aimed to eliminate the Han's rule completely and replace it with Russian officials, dividing the steppe into new administrative regions. At the same time, the empire expanded military settlements, with Cossack forces enforcing new laws and seizing land. One of the most controversial figures of the period was Han Jangir of the Bukay Horde. He introduced policies that some saw as beneficial, such as modernization and education, while others viewed them as betrayals that helped the empire tighten its grip on Kazakhstan.
As Russian control expanded, Kazakh lands faced another major transformation: the resentment of Russian and Ukrainian peasants. The empire encouraged large-scale migration, forcing Kazakh nomads to settle permanently and leading to land despots. This created a deep crisis. Kazakh herds lost access to traditional grazing lands, and conflicts between settler and local populations became more frequent. The nomadic way of life, which had excited for centuries, was now under threat.
The famine of 1931-33 in Kazakhstan is one of the greatest tragedies in our history. This wasn't just a famine, it was a man-made disaster. The Soviet government confiscated everything: grain, livestock, even last crumbs of food. Kazakh nomads who had lived off their herds of centuries were forcibly stripped of their way of life. Livestock numbers plummeted from 40 million to less than 5 million. Even direct of famine, grain and meat were exported abroad and to other Soviet regions. People died of starvation, entire villages were wiped out. In desperation, some resorted to cannibalism. Estimates suggest 1.5 to 2.3 million people perished, almost half of the Kazakh population. The famine was not an accident, it was a deliberate policy that destroyed not only millions of lives, but also the culture, traditions, and spirit of our people. Today we must remember this strategy, speak about it, and demand its recognition to ensure such horrors are never repeated.